Hey Pascal, this is Connor Hibbett. Gage is not with me here today. He's busy right now. I don't have as busy of a schedule, so I'm just kind of go over things with you. Pascal football is at Martin tonight at 7:30. Martin is undefeated in district right now. They've scored 179 points, which is a district high, and given up only 83, which is the second lowest in the district, with Mansfield being on top with 58, only giving up 58 points. And then this Martin team is really good. I look for this game to be a high-scoring game for them. So maybe if we can put up some points, we can maybe stay with them. We'll see, because we stayed with Mansfield for several minutes, so maybe we can do it with this team. Pascal volleyball tonight versus Martin at home. The football team plays at Martin. Volleyball team plays at home at 6:30. Martin volleyball has won their last 7 and is 6-0 in the district, 24-5 overall. So maybe they can have their winning streak snapped tonight against Pascal. We need it. Let's go volleyball. Swimming is the Yellow Jacket Sprint, Wilkerson Grinds Activity Center. So go swimming. It's on Saturday. So go swimming. So I kind of swam through the swimming stats, I hit the football stats, and I set up the volleyball stats for my college football picks for this week. This week, LSU at Florida. This game is going to probably be a good game. This LSU team this year has not looked very impressive, but Florida has looked impressive. They've looked inconsistent, but Florida has looked better than LSU overall this year. So I'd go with Florida at home this week. This game should be close. You're probably looking at a 24-21 type game. But I would keep this one at low scoring for the confidence points. I'd probably keep it within 1 to 3 points. LSU could pull off an upset win here, but LSU is going to want to turn it around. I've been reading articles about them, and they're really wanting to step up their game. They're really wanting to show people what they're made of this year, and so I think their character is going to get tested, and I think they'll test Florida very well, and I think Florida will be put up to the test, and I think it'll be a close game. But I think Florida will come away with the win. So I'd go with Florida with this. And I'll save the TCU game for last, because I know you guys really want to hear about that. Minnesota at Purdue. Purdue's favored to win this game by 4. I think they're going to win the game by 3. I think you're looking at another 24-21 type game. This Purdue team has actually been pretty good this year. If you remember, in the first game of the season, they almost beat Louisville. They had a lead most of the game, and then they were competing with Michigan for most of the game, and then Michigan started to pull away at the end. But Michigan, again, pulling away at the end. I don't think Michigan's looked very impressive, but I'll get into that later because I have to get into the Michigan and Michigan State game. But Purdue, I think they are the better team in this case. They're playing at home, and I think Minnesota's won the last 4, so I think Purdue's going to want a little bit of revenge on them. I think Purdue wins this game in a close game, but I think they dominate throughout the game, and I think they dominate the facet of the game. So you're looking at a 24-21 type game, Purdue winning. K-State at Texas. Texas is the team on the rise. They are my dark horse contender for the Big 12 this year. I think this team is a legit contender. You're probably thinking, what the heck, Connor? Well, look at this. They have 2 losses this year, both against decent teams. Yeah, Maryland, you could argue who's not. But as we all know, USC's a pretty good team this year. Yeah, I don't care if they just lost. They're still a good team. You have to look at the overall concept of things. And USC is still a good team. And this Texas team hasn't even lost in Big 12 play yet, and that's the most interesting thing. And they got their first win at Iowa State last week. And I think this team will just keep on rolling with a 2-touchdown win in this case. I think they're going to win the game in a low-scoring fashion. I think K-State's defense kind of hangs in there. But I think Texas, and overall, during the course of the game, they kind of put up a couple field goals, a touchdown. I think you're looking at a 23-10 type game. I think the Texas defense will shut down the K-State offense. I've seen K-State been shut down this year against Vanderbilt, so I think Texas will even do a better job than what Vanderbilt did. So I think you're looking at about a 23-10 win for the Texas Longhorns. Go Longhorns. My dad went there. Washington State at Oregon. This is the game that you're going to have to predict the score for. Oregon's quarterback is out for the game for right now of what we know of. But tomorrow they'll make that final decision. But for right now, he's out. And then, of course, Royce Freeman, their very good running back's out. Right now he's averaging about 5 yards per carry. We don't really know if he'll be playing or not, but for right now, I would go with Washington State. Oregon has several players out in this game. Washington State wins the game at Oregon 38-20. 28. So I think this Oregon offense still will put up some yards. They're averaging about 537 yards per game or so. Washington State averaging about 498 to be exact. So I think this Washington State offense will get something done on the Oregon defense, even though it's going to be at Oregon. But the fact that it's played at Oregon, one of the tougher places to play in the nation, I think Washington State will struggle a little bit at the beginning. They'll kind of move slow at the beginning, kind of like what happened against USC. It started out a little bit slow for them. But I do think that Washington State will win this game by 10 points or so. So 38-28, I think it will be a little bit of a high-scoring game. A very interesting game this weekend, Miami against Florida State. Florida State's actually won the last 7 times. So I think this Miami team's going to really want to come out and do something about it. Miami is favored to win this game by 3, but Florida State has about a 67% chance of winning. I don't think Florida State will win this game. You look at Miami and their defensive line, their front seven's very good, and their secondary is very aggressive. And, you know, they can really force some turnovers in key situations. They're really good on stopping people on 4th down. I think this Miami team wins the game over the course of the game. I think it starts out slow. I think it's going to be slow the whole entire game until maybe the very end. I think Miami pulls away, kind of like what Florida State did against them last year, and then Miami scored a late touchdown, had the PAT blocked. I think Miami's going to want revenge, but I think Miami wins over the course of the game. I think they kind of start dominating in the 4th quarter. The Florida State defense is pretty good this year, but I think they'll get tired. You're looking at a 20-13 type game here, so very similar to last year's score, which ended up being 20-19, favoring Florida State in Miami. And this game's at Florida State, so the Florida State crowd will be into it. It will be low scoring. In fact, Florida State might be winning at half 10-7, but I think in the second half it's all Miami Hurricanes. I think Miami wins the game 20-13. Michigan State at Michigan. You're probably looking at a 21-14 game here. Michigan State's only allowing about 248 yards per game. Michigan's defense is obviously one of the better defenses in the country once again. So I think this Michigan defense will get it done for them today, or will get it done for them tomorrow. I don't think the Michigan State offense will do enough against the Michigan defense. We saw that against Notre Dame. Michigan State didn't get a lot done. So they lost that game 38-18. So you're probably looking at a lower scoring game. Obviously, Michigan does not have the offense that Notre Dame does, but Michigan wins because they're at home and they're not going to dominate the game. It's a rivalry game. It's going to be close like it was a couple years ago between these two, and heck, last year was decently close. But Michigan, they just win it in a good classic ball game, 21-14. A team that I know that people are not happy about this year. They had higher expectations from what they are doing right now is Nebraska. You know, you look at the history of college football, they're one of the more known teams. You have teams like Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, USC. Nebraska's right up there. But this year, they're not really showing that. I would suggest you keep this game at a high point, confidence favoring Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin I think the game will start out slow. You look at Nebraska, their defense is a little bit better than their offense. They rely on their defense a little bit more. Wisconsin's offense is not a hurry-up offense. They're a kind of grinded out 3 to 4 yard type team. So I think you're looking at a 38-17 game. I think Wisconsin will start out very slow, like I said. At halftime, you might be even looking at a 14-10 type ball game, but I think over the course of the game, Wisconsin will dominate. In fact, their defense might force a couple key turnovers in the second half. Even though it's at Nebraska, I think Wisconsin will pull away with a 3-touchdown win, 38-17. Again, I would keep this at a high points for confidence. I don't think Wisconsin will have any problem winning this game, whether it be close or not. My upset alert, guys, you're looking at an upset, right? And for an upset for you guys would either be a ranked team against a non-ranked team or number 2 team playing Alabama, or whoever it might be against Alabama, or whoever it might be against Clemson. But Stanford at Utah this week, I'm putting this game at 9 points because I'm pretty confident Stanford's going to win. I wouldn't recommend you do that. I just want to create some separation for me to have a better chance to win it all for the college pick'em this year. But I think Stanford's going to beat this Utah team. Utah, to me, does not look very impressive. They have not played a decent team yet, and they barely won against some couple good teams. And then they blew away some average teams like San Jose State. But I think the Stanford's team's going to get it done. They have a very good running back. He's a dark horse contender for the Heisman at the moment. I think they just dominate the time possession. They dominate the whole game except for the scoreboard. Utah will stay with them. I mean, they are the higher ranked team, And so Utah's going to have a little bit more confidence going into the game. They're undefeated. Stanford has a couple losses, so Utah's thinking, well, we got this. Well, watch out. Stanford's going to pull off this upset 27-24. Watch out, Utah. I think Stanford's going to beat you. And then the last game, Georgia at Vanderbilt. Well, you probably agree with me. You can probably put this game at 10 points. I don't think Georgia will have any trouble whatsoever. I think that this whole entire game will be Georgia's. They might start out slow in the first quarter, but first quarter, that's not much. I think the final score will be something like 31-7. I think the Vanderbilt defense will play a bend, not break style in this game. I don't think they'll give up 400, 500 yards, but I think that the Georgia offense will slowly but surely create some differential on the scoreboard, and I don't think the Vanderbilt offense will get anything going against that tough Georgia defense. But here's some news. The Georgia linebacker, Natris Patrick, is out for right now because of marijuana. He got arrested last night. So just giving you that update. We'll see what impact that has. But Georgia's they're very deep on defense. They have a lot of depth, so I don't look for this to be a real problem. Some notable games this past week. We saw USC lose to Washington State. And if you remember in our last episode, Gage was asking me, well, who do you think is going to win for each conference? And, right now it's kind of hard to say. If you remember me saying a few weeks ago, I said Stanford was going to win the Pac-12. I still think they can win the Pac-12. They only have one loss currently in the Pac-12 against USC. But we'll see what they do, but I still think they're capable of winning. I think Washington State's capable of winning it. I think USC is also capable of winning it, but we'll see about the Pac-12. For the Big 12, I have Oklahoma State winning it. I think Mason Rudolph will win the Heisman this year. I think he's the best quarterback in the nation. Whether second best quarterback rating, best quarterback rating, because currently right now he has the second best quarterback rating behind Baker Mayfield of Oklahoma. And yes, Baker Mayfield's a very good player. You heard me say that before they played Ohio State. I think he is the best quarterback in the nation, but I think Mason Rudolph is the best pocket passer in the nation, and I think Mason Rudolph has the best offense in the nation surrounding him. Because you look at their whole team, their whole offensive line's back, their whole receiving core is very good, especially James Washington. And TCU fans know who James Washington is because he had a big play against him. But I think James Washington's a very good receiver. And as you know, last year we saw it with Clemson, we saw it with Tech the last few years. Good receivers will help out a good quarterback. And Oklahoma State and Mason Rudolph have the whole package. While Oklahoma, yeah, they have some good receivers. They're Oklahoma. They're going to get good recruits. But I think Baker Mayfield does a lot for that team. I think he does more individually than what Mason does. Plus, Baker can scramble. He's very scrappy like that. Mason can't scramble. He can read a defense, and he has a very good arm. Very good timing. But I think he has better timing than Baker does. But that's just my opinion. So, you look at these Oklahoma schools this year, and I still think that the winner of that Bedlam game will probably play for the Big 12 championship game, either against TCU, Texas. We'll see who else makes a run, but those are my four teams right now. And so, but I think Oklahoma State will win the Big 12 this year. You look at the SEC, it's Alabama, and Georgia climbing their way up. Preseason, I had Georgia winning the East, and I'm still very confident with that. I think their defense is very good this year. You heard me say that before they played Notre Dame. I think Georgia is a very good team this year. I think they're capable of going undefeated before the SEC championship against Alabama, and I think they could beat Alabama, but we'll see. But for right now, for the SEC, I see Alabama in the West and Georgia in the East. For the ACC right now, obviously Clemson, but I think Miami could also make a run for the other side. I think that those two teams right now are good on both sides of the ball. As we saw Thursday night, we saw Louisville get beat by an NC State team, and I think NC State could also make a run, but I don't think they're as good as Miami and Clemson are. But I think this NC State front seven is very good. They had 6 of their 7 guys returning, and it showed against Louisville. Lamar Jackson, it took him a little while to get going, and that's what's going to happen. Because Lamar is more of a runner than he is a passer. He's more of an athlete. Yeah, he won the Heisman last year, guys, but remember, the Heisman goes to the best offensive player. Yeah. They say the best player, but they mean best offensive player. It's never going to be handed to a defensive player unless that defensive player is just that good. And guys, in the history of college football, there's only been one player to ever win the Heisman on defense. So there's your story for that. But you look at Lamar Jackson, he's more of a runner than he is a passer. And so I don't think that's going to work against NC State. NC State, heading into the game, had only allowed about 85 yards rushing per game. So I didn't think the Louisville running game was going to get a lot going in the game. So that means they were going to start off slow. They are a run-first, pass-second team. Sure, they might go empty, but it doesn't mean Lamar's not going to scramble if he doesn't find anyone open. And Lamar, it's not like Lamar scans the field. He's going to scramble once that first or second receiver is not open. He's going to scramble. He's not going to hesitate. We know that about him. That's why he has all those good stats. But against a front seven like that, he's not going to be able to get the running game going, which means he has to get the passing game going, which means they have to change the blocking scheme, which means it takes a little while for the team to get into it, and the result is a loss by a couple touchdowns. But they come back at the end, they put up a fight because Louisville's still a really good team, while NC State's still a good team playing at home and wanting revenge off of that bad loss against Louisville from last year. So congratulations NC State for beating Louisville and Lamar Jackson. And, so I think that in the ACC you have a few teams who could run for it, but my top two are Clemson and Miami. And then, of course, all preseason we probably had Florida State, but, when you lose a quarterback like that, it's going to be hard to make a comeback. I don't care how good your defense is. Florida State's defense is very good. It's one of the better ones in the country. Doesn't matter if your offense cannot get it going. They're only putting up 300 yards per game, Florida State. So there's my story on that. And the Big Ten this year, you look at the Big Ten. The highest ranked team currently right now in the Big Ten is Penn State, and I think they're very deserving of it. I think Penn State is the best team in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State is the second best team. Maybe Wisconsin's up there, but Wisconsin's division, like you heard me say earlier this year, their division's very weak. Their schedule's very weak. Right now, they only play one ranked team. And as you saw, a decent Northwestern team stayed with them. So we'll see what Wisconsin's capable of doing this year. I don't think Michigan, again, is for real this year. I don't think they're the team to beat. Well, right now they are, but overall, at the end of the year, I don't think they're going to be the team to beat. Yeah, sure, at the end of the year, they may only have one or two losses. That's what's going to happen because look who their coach is, look who Michigan is. Their name is Michigan. Just look at their name. And look at their schedule. But I don't think this Michigan's team is going to be the team to beat. I think it's going to be Penn State and Ohio State, or Penn State and Wisconsin at the end of the year. That's probably like last year, Penn State and Wisconsin. That's probably what you're going to be seeing again this year. This Notre Dame team competed against Georgia. They only lost by 1 point. And so the second game of the season, you're thinking, oh, okay, this is not a top 10 matchup. None of these teams are in the top 10, so what's the big deal? It's not like these teams are going to make a run. It's not like these teams are a top 5 team. Well, as we see from since then, Georgia actually is a top 5 team. So I think this, again, like you heard me say earlier this year, I think this Georgia defense is very good. They had 10 of their 11 starters returning for this year, and their coach is a former Alabama defensive coordinator, Kirby Smart. So come on now, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. I think Georgia is for real this year. And this Notre Dame team, so what I'm trying to say about Notre Dame is that their only loss came to Georgia at home by 1 point, in which they were winning for most of the game. So watch out, this Notre Dame team could be for real this year. They might only end up with a couple losses this year, so I'm just saying, watch out. And it's Notre Dame. If they have a good season, they're going to be ranked high, because they're going to be ranked high whether they had a good season or not for the upcoming season. And since they had higher expectations of what happened to last year, again, kind of like what happened with last year with Notre Dame, they didn't have a good season. They're wanting to prove people what they can do, kind of like what I said with LSU. So, guys, I said I would save this for last, and I am going to be saving it for last, and I'm about to go over it. TCU against West Virginia. Number 8, TCU. How about that? Top 10? Give them a round of applause. Not too bad. TCU has proven people wrong this year, and they proved me wrong against Oklahoma State. West Virginia is ranked number 23. Only loss came to Virginia Tech, 31-24, first game of the season. As we've seen from Virginia Tech, they're a pretty decent team. They were only a couple of touchdowns against. They only lost by a couple of touchdowns against Clemson, who's a very good team. And so this TCU team, they showed some really good stuff against Oklahoma State. Their defense really slowed down. Their explosive offense for Oklahoma State only had one big play. Oklahoma State, everything else was 5 and 7 and 8 yard gains. None of those 60 and 70 yard stuff. But only again that one play to James Washington. But this TCU team's good. I mean, they're good on the offensive line. They're good on the defensive line. They're really controlling the line of scrimmage this year, unlike we saw from them last year. So I think this TCU team has improved significantly this year. But I still think this TCU team will lose a couple times this year. I cannot guarantee when that will be, but I don't think it will happen in this game. I think they will win this game. It's at home. Gary Patterson is undefeated when ranked in the top 10 at home in his career at TCU. So I think TCU will win this game by a couple touchdowns. I think they will slow down the explosive West Virginia offense with Will Grier. I think TCU wins the game 45-28. I'm not impressed with West Virginia's defense. I think TCU will get it done offensively, and I think over the course of the game you'll see TCU slow down the West Virginia offense. So final score there, 45-28. I'm impressed with the TCU Horned Frogs this year, but I don't think they'll win the Big 12 this year. But okay, if they do it, then good for the TCU. They'll prove me wrong there. But I think this TCU team's a very good team this year. I do think they'll finish in the top 15 this year. But I think you're looking at probably a 10-2 and 9-3 team this year. But according to their schedule right now, you're probably looking at a 10-2 team. But we'll see what happens. Preseason, I had them going 9-3. We'll see what happens again. But TCU wins this game 45-28. So again, I'll go over my picks, and that will be it for Panther Nation this week. I have Florida winning the game 24-21 against LSU. TCU beating West Virginia 45-28. Purdue beating Minnesota at home 24-21. Texas beating K-State 23-10. Washington State at Oregon. I have Washington State winning this game 38-28. Again, 38-28. That's my score for this week for the score they make you pick. I have Miami winning at Florida State. Keep that in mind, 20-13. Michigan State at Michigan. Remember what happened 2 years ago in the Big House. I don't think Michigan will allow something like that to happen again. Michigan wins 21-14. Wisconsin at Nebraska. Again, this game starts out slow, but Wisconsin wins over the course of the game, 38-17. Stanford pulls off the upset against Utah, 27-24, at Utah for that matter. And then Georgia at Vanderbilt starts out a little bit slow in the first quarter, but Georgia gets it going. They probably end up with about 380 yards of offense. Georgia 31, Vanderbilt 7. And then, of course, last night with Louisville and NC State won. I look for NC State to keep on rolling. And, of course, I hope my LSU Tigers will keep on rolling. And then for your case, I hope TCU keeps on rolling. And, guys, I know they haven't won a game this year, but Pascal football, come on. The season's not over till it's over. The game's not over until that clock hits 0. Season's not over until it's over. Go Pascal football all the way till the end. And for now, I'm Connor Hibbett with Panther Nation, and I'll be doing this every single week until the end of the year because I'm not giving up until the clock hits 0. For now, I'm Connor Hibbett. This is Panther Nation. Have a good weekend, Pascal.